Black Dolphin Prison, Russia. Located near the border with Kazakhstan, Black Dolphin houses the most monstrous criminals in the Russian Federation: cannibals, serial killers, and terrorists. The level of control is absolute. Inmates are kept under 4-hour video surveillance. When they are moved from their cells, they are forced to walk bent over at the waist, handcuffed behind their backs, and often blindfolded. This stress position prevents them from learning the prison's layout or ever seeing a guard's face clearly. They are not allowed to sit or lie on their bunks from the moment they wake up until they go to sleep. There is no common area, no cafeteria, and no exercise yard that isn't a small cage. In the history of Black Dolphin, there has never been a successful escape. It is a place where men are sent to be forgotten by the world until the day they die. La Modelo, Colombia. La Modelo, Colombia. La Modelo in Bogota is famous for being divided into two distinct warring halves: the left-wing guerrillas and the right-wing paramilitaries. These two factions run their respective sectors like military camps. The guards do not patrol the internal wings. They only man the perimeter. Inside, the inmates are often armed with grenades, firearms, and knives. The prison has been the site of horrific discoveries, including human remains found in the drainage system, suggesting that disappearances happen regularly within the walls. Business is conducted openly, with inmates running restaurants and shops inside the prison, while the underlying threat of a sudden, full-scale military engagement between the factions remains a constant, daily reality. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, USA. Alcatraz was never designed to be a place of rehabilitation. It was designed to be the end of the line. Operating from 1934 to 1963, on a barren rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, it housed the incorrigibles, the men other prisons couldn't handle. The danger here wasn't just from the inmates, but from the environment itself. The prison enforced a rule of silence for years, where prisoners were forbidden from speaking, leading to severe mental breakdowns. The frigid, churning currents of the bay acted as a psychological wall. Guards maintained an ironclad discipline where even the smallest infraction resulted in the whole, a pitch-black isolation cell with no bed and no light. The psychological pressure of being able to see the lights and hear the sounds of San Francisco just over a mile away while trapped in total sensory deprivation made Alcatraz one of the most mentally corrosive environments in penal history. Porto Velho Prison, Brazil. Porto Velho is a literal battleground where the state has effectively lost control. Located in the heart of the Rondônia region, it is defined by the brutal presence of powerful Brazilian drug factions. The prison is characterized by extreme, recurring violence that often spills over into gruesome massacres. In these facilities, the cells are not just rooms, they are tactical positions held by rival gangs. Riots are not about better food or conditions. They are strategic strikes meant to eliminate the competition. In 2017 and subsequent years, the prison saw decapitations and bodies being burned as gangs fought for control of the internal drug trade. The guards often stay on the periphery, only entering in heavy tactical gear, leaving the inmates to govern themselves through a bloody, informal code of war. Camp 2, North Korea. Camp 22, or Kwanli-Sono 22, is a massive political labor colony isolated in the northeastern corner of North Korea. It is not a prison for criminals, but for enemies of the state. The danger here is systemic and state-sanctioned. Unlike other prisons where violence is a result of inmate conflict, the violence here is a tool of management. Reports from defectors describe a system where 3 generations of a family are imprisoned for the perceived political crimes of one person. Inmates are subjected to extreme forced labor, working in mines and fields for 12 to 15 hours a day on starvation rations. There is no legal recourse, no release dates, and no contact with the outside world. The mortality rate is estimated to be incredibly high due to exhaustion, malnutrition, and summary executions for minor infractions of camp rules. Tadmor Prison, Syria. Tadmor is a name that evokes terror throughout the Middle East. Located in the desert of eastern Syria, it was designed as a place of absolute subjugation. Historically, the prison was known for cleansing operations. In 1980, following an assassination attempt on the president, Hundreds of prisoners were executed in their cells in a single morning. The architecture of the prison was built to maximize the guards' ability to observe and terrorize. Inmates were often forbidden from looking at the guards or even looking each other in the eye. Torture was not an occasional occurrence, but a daily administrative routine. The isolation of the desert meant that whatever happened behind the high stone walls remained a secret, making it a black hole where thousands of political dissidents simply disappeared. Kresty Prison, Russia. Located in St. Petersburg, Kresty is an architectural relic designed to hold 1,150 inmates, but for decades, it notoriously held over 10,000. This extreme overcrowding created a survival of the fittest hierarchy. In cells designed for 6 people, 20 or more were often crammed together, forced to sleep in shifts because there wasn't enough floor space for everyone to lie down at once. This lack of space led to the rapid spread of tuberculosis and AIDS. Within this chaos, a rigid inmate hierarchy took hold, where the thieves in law dictated the rules of daily life. The air in the cells was so thick with cigarette smoke and lack of ventilation that many inmates developed chronic respiratory issues within weeks. It was a factory of disease and psychological trauma. Rikers Island, USA. Rikers Island is a massive complex of 10 prisons sitting in the East River of New York City. Its danger stems from a toxic culture of violence that has persisted for decades. It is a jail, meaning most people there are awaiting trial, yet it is more dangerous than many maximum security federal prisons. The facility is plagued by a chronic shortage of staff and a breakdown in basic security protocols. This has led to program houses, where inmates are allowed to control sections of the housing units through violence and intimidation, often with the tacit approval or total absence of guards. The combination of high-density housing, gang rivalries from the city's streets, and a deteriorating physical infrastructure makes every day on Rikers a gamble with personal safety. Pedak Island Prison, Russia. Known as the Alcatraz of Russia, Pedak Island is a high-security facility surrounded by the freezing waters of White Lake. It houses the most dangerous criminals in Russia, but the danger here is the silence. Inmates are kept in two-man cells for 22.5 hours a day. They are allowed only 2 short visits per year and are forbidden from any form of education or self-improvement. The extreme isolation, combined with the brutal sub-zero temperatures of the Russian north, causes rapid mental deterioration. Many inmates suffer from prison psychosis within the first few years. There are no riots here because the prisoners are too broken by the cold and the solitude to organize. It is a slow, psychological execution. San Quentin State Prison, USA. As California's oldest prison, San Quentin is a labyrinth of outdated architecture and high-tension environments. For decades, it was the only facility in the state to house death row inmates. The proximity of the general population to the most condemned men in the country creates an atmosphere of heavy, permanent tension. In the 1970s and 80s, it was the birthplace of some of the most violent prison gangs in American history. The North Block and West Block have seen massive racial riots that required the intervention of hundreds of armed officers. Despite modern reforms, the sheer age of the facility and its history of racial segregation and gang warfare keep it on the list of the most volatile institutions in the United States. Bang Kwang Prison, Thailand. Bang Kwang, located outside of Bangkok, is where the Thai government sends long-term and death row inmates. For the first few months of their sentence, prisoners were traditionally required to wear heavy leg irons welded onto their ankles. The prison is notorious for its crushing overcrowding and a diet consisting mostly of a single bowl of rice and soup per day. Those without family to send them extra money for food and medicine quickly succumb to malnutrition and disease. The Bangkok Hilton is a place where the heat is relentless, the hygiene is non-existent, and the rules are enforced with a bamboo cane. The psychological toll of facing a life sentence or execution in these conditions is immense. Carandiru Prison, Brazil. Though now closed, Carandiru remains a symbol of prison catastrophe. At its peak, it was the largest prison in Latin America, holding over 8,000 inmates. It was effectively a self-governing city of criminals. In 1992, a simple dispute between 2 inmates escalated into a massive riot. The military police stormed the facility with automatic weapons. The resulting massacre left 111 prisoners dead, many shot in their cells after surrendering. Before its demolition, the prison was a hub for the spread of HIV, with nearly 20% of the population infected. It was a place where the state's answer to overcrowding and gang control was a level of violence that shocked the entire world. Gitarama Prison, Ronda. Gitarama is often described as hell on earth. Designed for 400 people, it was used to house over 7,000 inches the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide. The conditions were so cramped that inmates had to stand up for most of the day, causing their feet and legs to swell and often develop gangrene, requiring amputation. The lack of sanitation and food was so severe that many died of sepsis and starvation within months. It was a place where the sheer density of human bodies created a literal suffocating environment. The danger wasn't from weapons or guards, but from the physical impossibility of sustaining human life in such a small, filthy space. La Sabaneta, Venezuela. La Sabaneta is arguably the most lawless prison in the Western Hemisphere. The Venezuelan government has virtually no presence inside the cell blocks. Power is held by PRAN's inmate leaders who act as kings. These leaders own the keys to the cells, control the distribution of food and water, and maintain private armies of assistants armed with submachine guns and machetes. Violence is the only currency. In 1994, a riot resulted in over 100 deaths, with some inmates being burned alive or beheaded. To survive in La Sabaneta, an inmate must pay for protection, for a place to sleep, and even for the right to live. It is a Darwinian nightmare where the guards only exist to prevent escapes from the outer wall. ADX Florence, USA. The administrative maximum facility in Colorado is the highest security prison in the United States. It is designed for total control through total isolation. The inmates, including terrorists, double agents, and gang leaders, spend 23 hours a day in a 7 by 1 2-foot concrete cell. The furniture is made of poured concrete. The windows are narrow slits designed to prevent an inmate from knowing where they are within the complex. There is no human contact. Even the 1 hour of exercise is done in a high-walled concrete pit. This environment is designed to break the human spirit. The danger here is the absolute quiet. Inmates frequently attempt self-harm as a desperate reaction to the crushing weight of permanent, unending solitude. It is the pinnacle of the supermax philosophy.